Probably the biggest thing was when I got here, one of the first questions I asked because of the problems the agency had had is, where's our compliance officer? Well, we didn't have one. We didn't have a compliance officer. We didn't have a compliance program to speak of. And so one of the first appointments that I made after I got here was to hire a chief compliance officer and to begin creating for the first time a true compliance program for this agency. And that's been a lot of what we've been doing these last few months. We've been reviewing standard operating procedures for all of our program divisions. In some instances, we've been creating standard operating procedures, but just trying to make sure this agency is functioning in compliance with the law. And that was something that was a high priority when the governor asked me to take this job for obvious reasons, given what trouble the agency had gotten into. And we've been working hard at that piece. We have a deputy compliance officer who came on a month and a half after the chief compliance officer, and they have been steady meeting with every division director, every member. We have a brand new senior leadership team. When I came here, I spent the first month really just kind of doing my due diligence, literally. Interviewing top level management, interviewing the second level, the division directors. I actually brought in an old friend who was a retired IRS special agent in criminal investigations, and he did about 40 interviews for me to help me essentially decide what among the team I was going to keep and what folks I needed to hire. So I've hired about 3 senior leadership positions. I actually just had to hire another one when the governor appointed our general counsel to be the commissioner of CPS. And we've had some division directors who left, and I've hired 3 division directors since I got here. So it's been busy. We took it upon ourselves. One of the commitments I made when the governor asked me to take this appointment as executive director was that I felt like we needed to do a forensic audit. The state auditor does a single audit, which is looking at question costs that they can't find full documentation for, or that they're not sure they're consistent with the guidelines. They don't do a full, what I'll call forensic audit, where they look at all of the federal guidelines, all of the state law, and make sure that money should never have been expended. Well, we made a commitment as an agency, and I made a commitment as the director, that we were going to do a forensic audit. And so we did a request for information, put that out there, and we hired a well-respected national firm, Clifton Larson Allen, and they are doing a complete forensic audit. And when I say forensic, people may not be familiar with that term. That's an audit that will be useful, that will stand up as evidentiary material in any criminal trial, any civil trial, whatever. What the forensic audit will do, we hired Clifton Larson Allen, and they're going to be looking at every TANF transaction from January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2019. And our best guess is that's 100,000, maybe 125,000 transactions that they'll be looking at. And they will be comparing those transactions with what the federal law allows, what federal law permits, and they will be determining what is unallowable costs. And we expect there to be a big difference between the question costs that the auditor's office did in their single audit, which was $94 million, and the unallowable costs. Now, what that number will be, I don't know. I hope it'll be a third of that or maybe less. The auditor's office is working with us and with our forensic audit team. They're called a third party to the audit because our forensic audit team is using the work papers that the state auditor's office compiled in doing the single audit as kind of a starting point, so they don't have to start from scratch. And they got started about the 1st of this month. They'll be working for about 9 months, so we expect to get a final report from them somewhere around July, and that'll tell us what the real number looks like. Well, I mean, there's always the question is, and we're going to take the audit as it comes. I mean, let the chips fall where they may, essentially. Whatever that number is, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. We will ultimately have to sit down with the Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families. That's who is our federal oversight agency for TANF. And we'll have to work out with them essentially a repayment corrective action plan with them. Now, there are a lot of options for what they can do. They can impose penalties on us as a state. They can put us under a repayment plan and essentially reduce our federal allocation of TANF money, but we have to keep the spending at the same level. So the state will have to replace that money that they reduce if they reduce our TANF spending. So yeah, there'll be a period of negotiation once we get the forensic audit results, and we'll just move forward from there. That's the only option we have, obviously. Oh, I think what we do as an agency is very important. In Mississippi, you know, let me just put it this way. For example, SNAP benefits, which is the food assistance program that we have. We support over 350,000 people in this state. Well, that's a large portion of the population, and they depend on that aid. TANF, we don't support as many families. We probably about 10% of that number or 5% of that number, but the families that rely on that TANF support really couldn't get by without it. And then we do some things that are also crucial to families. We run the child support program for the state of Mississippi. That program generates about $350 million a year in child support for families in Mississippi. And that is absolutely crucial to those families. We run a child care program. There are 2,500 child care providers in the state of Mississippi, and we provide vouchers to families to have access to that child care, and then we provide assistance to the child care providers themselves. We do training for them. We have been doing with some CARES Act money that we got, separate from what the legislature allocated. We got about $47 million worth of CARES Act money specifically for child care. And so we've been helping our child care centers try to stay open, because about 900 of them closed back in what we were saying in the summer, the height of the pandemic. Looks like we're headed into another height of the pandemic, but when it was at its worst, about 900 child care providers just shut down. And what we made a decision as an agency to do is those that stayed in operation, we paid them based on their attendance. Based on their enrollment instead of their attendance. And that allowed them to keep the doors open. They had much smaller numbers, obviously, because a lot of people were out of work. But for those who needed to be at work, it was crucial that those child care centers be able to operate. And we created a special type of child care program called the Child Care Aid in Isolation Response Plan. And that allowed for some temporary emergency vouchers for first responders and healthcare workers who had no option about being at work. And so we gave them special child care vouchers, emergency vouchers, so they could go to work and have provision for their children. So in a state like Mississippi, yeah, DHS is very crucial to hundreds of thousands of families across this state. We have a program called the Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program, or it's known as LIHEAP. And we got about $9.5 million or $9.2 million allocated for that. We're using that to help people pay their light bills, basically, pay their gas bills, their utility bills. When people are out of work, obviously, they weren't able to pay all their bills. And so we've been pushing out that assistance from a special CARES Act allocation that we got. We also got $15 million for rental and mortgage assistance. And we've been identifying renters who are eligible. They have to meet certain eligibility requirements based on their household income. If they meet the eligibility, we're not really putting any other restrictions on them. We're trying to get the money in their hands so they can stay in their homes. And that program, that rental and mortgage assistance, is separate from a program that the legislature did through the Mississippi Development Authority, which is really assistance for landlords who haven't been paid rent. we're making payments on behalf of the, the residents who live in those homes. One of the things we've seen a huge uptick in is our SNAP population. Back in March and April, we saw our numbers go up by thousands. In a week, we would be looking at 24,000 applications and trying to register and do the eligibility determination. That required our folks to work a lot of 12-hour days, a lot of 6-day weeks, but they were committed. These eligibility workers have been committed to doing what they needed to do in order to get that assistance into the hands of the families that we serve. Yeah, it is still available. Good question. We are not under that December 31st deadline that all of the CARES Act money that the legislature allocated. Our CARES Act money is available for us to expend through September 30th, 2021. And all of our LIHEAP money and our rental assistance runs through the community action agencies. There are about 16 of those scattered out around the state. We're the pass-through. We pass it through to the community action agencies. If you want to get assistance, you go to your local community action agency and make your application. If they approve you as eligible, then they give you the money. They pay the money to your utility. They can go to the local community action agency for LIHEAP and rental assistance, for our other benefits, for SNAP benefits, for child care, for TANF, all of that. They can make application directly to us. Our county offices are not open right now. They were closed when the pandemic hit, but we're taking applications online and also by telephone. And so you can contact your local office. We have an office in every county, and make an application for TANF or SNAP or child care assistance directly with your county office. I'm really proud of what we're calling around here Operation Restore Trust, because I told our senior staff, and then I've talked to all of our state office staff, and I've also talked, I do these monthly video chats that go out to our county offices. We're focused on integrity, compliance, and moving this agency toward excellence. And the way we're doing that is, the integrity piece is, I told our staff when I got here, if you want to see what integrity looks like, just watch me, because I'm going to follow the law to the letter. That's why the governor asked me to become the executive director. I've been a federal prosecutor. My integrity has never been questioned, and I'm going to walk the walk and not just talk the talk about integrity. In compliance, what we have done beyond creating a compliance program, we have changed our state plans. We've updated our RFP process. You know, in years past, if you wanted to get a grant from this agency, you just had to know somebody. Well, those days are gone. There's a new sheriff in town, so to speak. There's a whole new regime here. We have an RFP process. It's very robust. We require our potential subgrantees to score 75 out of 100 points. So they've got to convince us that they know what they're doing, and that they have the personnel, and that they have the experience, and they know how to write a budget. And if they don't know, one of the other things we hadn't done in the past is we hadn't trained those folks. So we've offered subgrant training. We offered grant writing training. I did that myself. I offered that. I mean, I was the trainer, and we offered that in October and 3 times in November for folks who want to be subgrantees but who really don't know how to write a subgrant. We help them understand what a model subgrantee looks like. Our Inspector General's office is just 2.5 years old. It has gotten very robust with our monitoring function and just ferreting out fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, we're all about, this agency now is about doing everything with transparency, doing it in compliance with the law, and making sure that our partners are following those same guidelines.